Shut up and sit down.
This is Off the Walk.
So, yeah, I was taking a walk today and it got me thinking. I mean, I'm the oldest in my family and I think you are too, right, Eric?
That's right.
Well, I was thinking, wouldn't it be great if I had an older brother or sister to, kind of give me some guidance in life? I mean, that probably would have saved me from a lot of stupid things I've done. Well, guess what, folks? Today, we have a very special guest, a man with a big heart and a ton of patience that has been a volunteer for over 15 years with the Big Brother Sister organization, Mr. Henry Luong. Thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
So, Henry, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit more about the Big Brother and Big Sister organization.
So for me, Calgarian here, living here most of my life, actually. And I got involved with the Big Brother, Big Sister organization about 16 years ago. It was actually before Big Brother, Big Sister. It was called Amphi, and it was a in-school mentoring program. So for me, I'm a self-proclaimed best uncle in the whole wide galaxy. All right, you could take that to the bank. So I was already from a young age, from my nieces when she was growing up, I told myself that it'd be part of her life. So I would pick her up every week from school, spend the day with her. And that's how it kind of started. Now I've got a friend a good friend of mine who was a program coordinator for Amphi at the time. And she said, hey, we're looking for some male volunteers. There's not enough out there. And she said, I think you'd be great. Just because because I'm kind of doing it with my niece already. So it was a pretty easy transition. So I thought about it for a little bit and asked her what was the time commitments and what's required. And so we got together and she told me, 1 hour a week in school. We're flexible. It doesn't have to be the same day. So took me actually about, I believe, like 2 months to kind of think about it. And then I finally decided to go for the, let's say the interview, but also not interview, but just went in to get to know a little bit more, meet the program coordinator. They would talk to me, learn about the program. Mm-hmm. And from right off the bat, I said, you know what, sounds great. Was a bit nervous, so I wasn't sure what I was getting involved with. But when they finally matched me up with somebody, it was a bit of an adjustment period because, as you can see, like two strangers that haven't met each other, doing this, and I'm trying to figure out, am I supposed to say I don't want to say the wrong thing. Was I supposed to be a parent? Was I supposed to be a teacher? So I was really kind of, just figuring things out with my kid. But after the second or third time, it just came really natural, actually. We hit it off. We started talking. We played board games, and the conversation just kind of flowed pretty easy. And the adjustment period, I thought it was going to be a big adjustment on my end with my life because I was busy with work and with family, but it worked out. It really did. So
awesome. So I guess you found out about this from your niece's school?
No, from one of my good friends who was a program coordinator at the time.
Oh, okay. So from one of your good friends as a coordinator. Okay, so that's how you found out about the program. So did they give you any, like, what kind of support did they give you? Or did they just kind of, hey, come in, you look like a good fit, and here, we'll find you somebody?
No. They it's certainly it was a bit of a process to come in because they do have to make sure you're a good fit do your criminal track check and all of that stuff to make sure, you're not endangering the kids when you're in part of that program. So there is a process that goes in. There is support along the way. So they would check in, especially in the beginning, how things are going, give suggestions, topics. They also give you a bit of homework. So then you would fill out what your interests are, what you like to talk about, a little bio of yourself. Same thing with your mentee. So then they would find some commonalities, and then they would have some activities where you can kind of go through in the beginning to ask questions, get to know each other. But the program coordinators were really good. They were there every step of the way. So it wasn't like I was left to my own vices. Anything I needed, any questions at all, any questions that the mentee had, they were certainly there.
So there wasn't kind of like an orientation prior. It was more like once you get in, and then you get your mentee, then it starts there, and they kind of give you all the tools, right, when you have it. So
that's right.
Nothing kind of like before. I thought maybe if it was something like this, you might have like a maybe a quick session beforehand just to let you know what you can expect.
Well, yeah. So that was part of the onboarding, like the onboarding in the beginning, right? So going in there, them telling you kind of what to expect, what are the roles. So they've got some workshops along the way as well. So remember, this was 16 years ago when I first started, right?
Oh yeah, 16.
Yeah, so it was a little while ago. So it wasn't like it was just a few years ago. So the transition from Amphi to Big Brother was pretty seamless.
Mm-hmm.
I would say with Big Brother, Big Sister, it's a lot more support. So they do have a lot more workshops, sessions. They do have a lot of volunteer, sessions where they would talk about issues with teams, how to deal with it, peer pressure. There's the various workshops that we can attend as well.
Mm-hmm.
The great thing about the organization is they do have a lot of tools, and they give a lot of resources to us, because sometimes it's hard for us to plan things. So they really kind of have a roadmap, but a good resource that we can go to if we do get hung up on some ideas, or if we need a path moving forward.
Right. So you're kind of like, you're like a mentor to them. You're like a teacher. You're like a friend. You're kind of like, you're filling in a variety of different roles for this person, eh?
I would say I'm more of a guide, right? So, and that's the one thing I found throughout the years and why, in my experience anyways, is I've been able to have the conversations and feel like I've had great relationships with my mentee, is because I'm not coming at them as a parent role or a sibling role, right? Or a teacher role, and just a person who's, hey, you know what? I'm a friend of yours. I'm here to hang out every week for an hour. You can depend on me, because in some of these situations, in a lot of these situations with these kids, they don't have a constant, right? So there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of change. They're used to, different people, different surroundings. So there's not really one person that they see all the time. So that was very important for me, because I wanted to do that to my niece and I wanted to carry that on. So that's why having that 1 hour for the whole school year is important, because it shows the kid like, hey, this program is not like, it's not like your family, or not like your school. It's like, we're here. You can talk about anything, and there's really no judgment. Of course, if we feel like the kid's in danger or anything, we would, of course, talk to the organization, talk to their parents, but it's never gotten to that point in my experience.
So, like, I guess, can any child join this program? Is there an age limit to this program?
Yeah, so it's a great thing where, I definitely wish we would have looked into it, Lance. Would have helped you a lot, in my opinion. But
thank you.
So,
yeah. I think it would have helped me a lot as well.
We turned out. I feel like you were like, we were mentoring each other when we were growing up. So one thing that to be honest, we've known each other since he was in diapers. They
Very
went into bed.
unfortunately,
Yeah,
very unfortunately.
sorry, I
Um,
digress. But sorry, Lance. We've known each other for a long time, so I'm trying to keep a straight face here. But what was I talking about?
we were talking about
Oh, I don't even know.
if
I
there
can't
was
remember.
an age limit. Let's keep it on track, folks. Okay, if there was an age limit on when these children can join, and like, is there a certain kind of aspect that they're looking for in order for these kids to join, or can anybody, right? Is this open to any child to be able to come into this program?
So with the program, the minimum age is 6, right? So, but the great thing about this is that the child can suggest to the parents to sign up. They can suggest to the school, or if the school, if they're part of the Big Brother Big Sister program, if they recognize a need for the individual, for the child to benefit from a program like this, they can actually talk to the parents and enroll their child.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm thinking about it, and obviously, Henry, me and you have been in school, and we went to school together. But I've never heard about any of these kind of programs. When we were in school, are
Mm-hmm.
is Big Brother and Big Sisters kind of doing more now to kind of advocate in this realm, to talk about it with more schools, or what channels are they going to, to let people know, hey, there is this program out here, and kids between whatever 6 to whatever it may be can contact us, and this is what we're all about. Have they been doing that kind of stuff?
They have. So when we were in high school and in junior high, which was only 5 years ago,
Yeah.
a lot longer. But what the kids are dealing with now, it wasn't talked about, right? It was in the era that we grew up. It was kind of like, hey, if you've got stuff that you're dealing with, deal with it yourself. It wasn't, you know, the mentorship wasn't a big thing. It was almost, it was nobody talked about it. Everybody was embarrassed about it. I feel right
Yeah.
because it's in that era. It was you had to be tough and you had to suppress your feelings. You had to, go out of your own way, and if you went to somebody for help or you talked, it showed weakness, right? So that's the big shift, and from when we were that age till now is the recognition and the fact that hey, you know what? People do need help. There's organizations out there that can help with certain because people at the end of the day, they need help. They want to talk to somebody, and it's not good if you hold it all in. Like so, I think the over the years it's gotten better, right? And Big Brother, Big Sister has really come to the forefront in recognizing the mental health aspect of it, right? And recognizing it a lot earlier by working with parents, by working with schools to recognize some of the signs and be
Mhm.
like, hey, we recognize this is kind of not it's lacking from a child, or they're not quite engaging, or they're not as confident, so we feel like we should put them in the program, and they could really benefit.
I mean, I think I could have definitely used a program like that.
100%.
100%, right? I mean, I come to you, but you just tell me, don't be a fool, man. Like, grow up. You got this.
Yeah,
And
go back to your
that
corner.
definitely was not helpful. But I'm glad that you haven't taken those routes with. No, I'm just kidding. No, Henry's been
I've
a.
taken all the mistakes. I've learned all the mistakes that we've gone through.
There we go.
And what would Henry Lance do? And then did the opposite. So,
I got
it's
I
been working.
Hey, I think you're doing a good job. You've obviously done it for 16 years now, and me and you, we turned out all right. But I do remember that in my earlier years, I had I was going through some probably some pretty difficult times, and my parents, they couldn't do anything, right? And as much as they wanted to help, they just weren't really the right people to talk to, and so they would have, like, friends of theirs to try to come over and try to have a chat with me. and I would be totally still really in my shell, right? Because like you say, we just really don't talk much about it. But I think over time, if that person was to persist, right, and to be there as like every 1 hour, like a week, that probably would have helped. Sorry.
I
For
agree
for
with
some
you
of
there, man.
our
Listen,
for some of our listeners, okay, Henry's throwing up some gang signs or something. You know, this episode is, we're
not a
probably gonna cut some of this out here, but
not a gang sign.
okay,
Not a gang sign.
but I'm trying to be serious. Do you see, now you understand the frustration that I grew up with as a kid, and now you understand what happened to me. It was all these things that was detrimented. But listen, we're here to talk about volunteering, and again, Eric, I don't know if you've had situation like this when you were younger. I don't know.
So can I come back? Sorry. So can I come back to the point that you're making when you're completely right. And we as Asians as well, where our parents, so we came from very similar backgrounds where our parents were always working, right? So
Yeah.
even if we wanted to have a conversation, we couldn't, because with my parents, I love them. I learned a lot from them. They are amazing parents, but they did what they felt they had to do for their kids, right? So like a lot of listeners out there, we had siblings like yourself, we raised them, right?
Yeah.
We pretty much made sure they had breakfast, lunch, go to school, did their homework, right? And my parents would come back and make sure we did have food and come check up on us. But they had to do what they had to do because, I mean, we couldn't afford a whole lot, right? So even if we wanted to, we couldn't because they weren't really around. And it just gets to the point where we're too scared to kind of tell them, right?
Yeah.
And when they did have, and you're right, they would bring family, friends over and they would try and talk to us. But how I looked at it was they were kind of just ratting me out, right? Making me look like, well, I can't trust them. They're coming over, obviously. I don't like them. I don't want to play with them. They're obviously trying to get information from me to like tell my parents. So that was one of the things where with family friends, I wasn't comfortable in telling people because I knew that they would just tell my parents and I would probably get in trouble.
So that's a question to you. So as a big brother, like if you found out some information, do you tell the parents, or do you tell somebody about their situation, or if they entrusted in you something that you probably, like, they didn't want you to tell, what do you do in those kind of circumstances?
So, I mean, I've been fortunate where I haven't come into that situation yet. There has been a time where it was close, but really just had a frank conversation with my kid and said, "Hey, this is important information where I feel like, I need to I need to express this to your parent, right,
Mhm.
or to the organization because I feel like not in a way where you're going to get in trouble, but it's like, hey, there's an issue here where we all need to help you figure it out, right? You're not here, it's not on you, right? This is a situation where it could go both ways, but we want to make sure that we provide you the best support and to let you know, like, there's other ways, right? So for me, being upfront with the individual really helped because it instilled trust. I don't want to go behind their back because that's the worst thing that I want to do. That's what people experience with their friends, with their teacher, or their parents, where you know you can trust me, you can say something, and then they will use it against them, right?
Mhm.
So for me, I was really cognizant and not doing that. And if I needed to express that, I would tell them, hey, this is a conversation that I'm definitely going to have. I will need to have with your parent. So the one situation here, I did say I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk to your parents or talk to your school, right? Or the program coordinator. I'm going to give you a day to do it. I'm going to check in on you. If you haven't told anybody, then we have an agreement where I can talk on behalf of you, right? So that helped, right? So it really made them feel, I guess, not comfortable, but gave them a boost and to realize, hey, what? Like this is a conversation that I need to have, right? And and to tell him, no matter what happens, I'm going to be there for you. Like in life, there's no right answer. Yes, you don't want to do the wrong things, but before you get there, let's talk about it. Let's, figure out what the issue is. Let's look at all the options, and then let's weigh in on the people that are important in your life and how it impacts them too.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
In the end, then did they tell?
Yes,
Okay.
they did. Right.
Okay.
So it turned out to be it was better that he did. Right. So it was a bit of a process and some things, but he understood why, and at the end of it, I mean, the relationship just gets stronger, right? With something like this, the worst thing you can do is have somebody push back, right? Where, and I mean, I've done it in the past, and I'm pretty sure everybody has too, where you express your feeling and then you feel resentment to that person because they're making you want to do it. But, for me, I let them know, it's something that's important that you have to involve the people that care about you, right? Because not only will it impact you, but it will impact them. So a big part of it is not just telling them what to do, but is really getting them to understand why that's important, right? I feel, and that's, I mean, with everybody, they're scared because they don't understand.
Yeah.
But once you understand the situation, it's easier for you to process it and analyze it and then justify, say, you know what, that makes sense. This is why I need to talk. So that was kind of where I felt, that approach, I needed to approach that individual.
So, how many kids can you work with at one time? Is it just one kid or?
It's one individual, and and I completely agree with that, just because everyone is a bit different. Although I feel like I could probably mentor 3 or 4 kids, I don't think it would be fair for them, just because life does happen, right? Things do get busy, and you don't want to be in a situation where you you make your mentee or the kid that you're in the program with feel neglected and just feel glazed over, right?
Yeah.
So, and the one thing I promised myself when I was in the program was, in that 1 hour, no phone, no anything. I wouldn't glaze over him. It wouldn't be, oh no, good. How's your week? It wouldn't be that. It would be more. It wouldn't be one word answers when we're playing board games. It would be, hey, like, what was the best thing you did today, right? Like, on the weekend, what did you and your parents get up to? So not just like, oh, how was your day? Most kids, good.
Yeah.
Right? What'd you eat? Sandwich.
Yeah. I think that's great, because I think there's so many parents out there that maybe should learn from this program itself, in that, just putting your phone down and paying attention. Maybe it's just an hour a day to what your kids are doing, rather than, I'm not calling out any parents, but there's a lot of people that are on their phones or distracted on their phones, and that's probably a good strategy, is just to be completely off it, so that you can give them their undivided your undivided attention, so that the kid knows, and they can get that trust from you, right? Because if you're there sitting there on your phone and he's trying to tell you his day or how things are going, and he doesn't see that you're paying attention, I think it's going to be hard to gain that kind of trust, right?
I 100% agree. I mean, not just from a kid's perspective, but even us, right? So, and don't get me wrong. I mean, there were times where I needed, because I was working at the same time. So if I was waiting on a phone call, or if I knew I had an important email coming or text, I would say, hey, I'm here with you, but I am expecting an important email or important text. And when that comes, I will have to excuse myself for 10 minutes. Once I'm done, that's it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that's great, because parents need to learn that, to set that, to let the children know that, okay, this is going to happen. So they have some kind of expectation, so that they don't think that you're just going to leave it up and go on them, right?
And is it do you ever get where, like, they contact you for, like, outside of the hour, like, certain, like, they just tell you, like, right now I just really want to talk to someone, so is it kind of like it's an hour, but then you'll still be in contact with them throughout the week? Like, is that how it works?
In the in-school program, it's not. So
Oh,
it's just
okay.
kind of in school,
Mhm.
but it also leaves it up to you and everyone that's involved, right?
Mhm.
So I can see different aspects where, hey, sometimes you don't want somebody, a volunteer, to have my kid's phone number and
Yeah.
texting them, right?
Mhm.
So it all depends on the relationship, how comfortable everybody is, right? So with the in-school mentoring, I didn't do a whole lot of that, right? And if there was texting, it would just be like, hey, I'm running a few minutes late, or I can't meet up today. How about
Mhm.
tomorrow, right? Or what do you have? If you have a spare tomorrow, or what's the class looking like?
Mhm.
And that's why actually one of the great things about if you're school, you're part of the Big Brother Big Sister, is they're 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 pretty collaborative in terms of like, hey, if you want to miss a class over here to do it, they recognize how important it is, right? So there are
Okay.
times where we wouldn't miss the same class over and over again. So it would
Right.
be, one week a different class, another week a different class, right? Just to make
Mhm.
sure that they're not missing the same class over and over again, or over a. I try not to do it over a lunch period, just because.
Yeah.
And what I find too is a lot of kids at first they're very hesitant to kind of walk with you if they're kids with other kids walking in the hall, because they're kind of like, what is this guy doing with you, right? He's not a
Right.
teacher, right?
Yeah.
So it is kind of like embarrassed almost, like, you know
Mhm.
nothing's wrong with me. They think like, but other kids like, what's wrong with him? Like, why does he
Mhm.
need somebody like that? So it did happen a lot like that in the beginning when the program wasn't as popular. So um but now so it's so normal.
So can you touch a little bit about what is the program offer now? Is it a lot of the in school like you were talking about just earlier, or is it like kind of one-on-one after hours, like after school, or how does that program work?
So there's different programs within Big Brother Big Sister. So you can do the in-school mentoring program, which would be not during school. It would be on the weekends. It would be after school, or however it is. Or you can be part of the in-school mentoring portion where it is in school.
And
Okay.
how long? Like how like is it an hour a
So the
week?
Yeah, so an hour a week if you're in school for the full school year, and then for the community program, it would be an hour to two, right? At least two times a month. But I mean, I've been pretty regimented in, and I feel like the frequency that you see your mentee is very important, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Now, it has been a bit tricky with with my kid in the last year, just because we couldn't meet,
Mhm.
right? So we couldn't meet, we couldn't see each other. We've texted kind of back and forth, but I've been with I've been with him for now, I think, 8 years, right? So we
Wow.
have that established relationship. So we transitioned. So we started from in school mentor program to now we're part of the Big Brother Big Sister community. So we meet outside of, because he's no longer in school. So
Mhm.
um, which is crazy actually. So I got matched up with him when he was 10 or 11, and he's turning 19 this year.
Wow.
So he went from being, I think, like 4'2", and now he's
Yeah.
like 6'2", 6'3". I'm
Yeah.
super proud of the kid, but it's crazy. Yeah,
That's
just
you're
thinking about that, that's crazy.
yeah, I mean, you're literally spending his
Half his
most
life with him.
formative years, yeah, his
Yeah.
the big years of his life, you're being there with him, and he's putting his trust in you because you are that constant in
Hmm.
his life, especially over 8 years, which is that's a really long amount of time. Like, how do you know when it's time to, like, when you're done? Like, how does that even work?
So far, it's been up to the individual. So it's been up to the mentee. So I've had an individual where I've only been matched with them for a year. They
Mhm.
went to high school and they felt like they, don't need the program or whatever reason it is, right? So yeah, and that's kind of the shortest match that I've got so far was 1 year.
Mhm.
But it's usually up to the individual and how comfortable they're with everything. So
So what's your longest? Is 8 years the your
eight
longest one?
years would be 8 year max would be the longest in the program.
That is intense. So this
But that's
all
just within the program. So
yeah.
with Ellie, who you guys had seen when we had that Big Brother Big Sister campaign, which by the way we actually got over 220 volunteers sign up
Oh,
kind
excellent.
of that weekend.
Whoa,
So
200.
yeah,
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
amazing. So that was a record for the organization. So definitely proud of that.
Well, folks, we
A little
got
bit
we
hesitant
got
on doing it.
we got to beat that record. So, listeners, we got to beat, well, how many you got? 200 something?
220?
220?
220, I believe was. Yeah.
Okay, we'll work on 10% of that, but we'll try to get as many volunteers as we can that are listening on here to do it. And so maybe bring us through, like, typically what's a day look like, or that hour look like when you're with your mentee.
I'll start. Right in the beginning when we kind of first met.
Okay.
Right. So, and that's where everybody's kind of like, how is it? Like, what's it like? So when you first get matched with the individual, it's not your first time meeting him at the school. So the program coordinator will come. I'm trying to remember. The program coordinator will talk to teacher. So the teacher will be there. You meet the student. Usually the parent will be there as well if they can make it. And then so it's a setting where all of us involved and we all talk to each other. Once everybody's comfortable with everybody, they go back, they go out and they say, yeah, nope, I want to continue, feel like it's a good match here, and then we continue on. So the next week we meet up, and then it's kind of discovery. So it's usually the icebreaker is playing board games, right? So we let them pick a board game, we sit down, and then we just start, kind of like if you meet somebody new, it's like, hey, so tell me about yourself, right? What are your interests? Do you like sports? So I'd say about the first 2 or 3 weeks is a lot about discovery, not only, and it is a bit tricky because you have to try and find a way to ask the questions where it's not just yes, no, one brother, right? Yep. Right. So I, get a lot of that. And I had to like really navigate that in the beginning and be like, oh my God, like how am I gonna engage this individual here? But it's about them being comfortable at the end. So within the first couple of weeks, it is a lot of short worded answers. But once I'd say about a month into it, that's when things start to open up a little bit. The conversations are a bit more organic, they roll a little bit better. There is the odd time where, because when I first started it was new, where people are walking around in the hall, they are looking, and you just try and put them at ease and just say, hey, get to class, you're late for class, and try and just joke around with stuff. So
has there been any times where it's on paper it's good, but then when you meet them, it's like it seems like actually you're incompatible with them, and then does that happen?
So I think that happened to me. I remember once where it just wasn't a fit, right? So I think we were matched for about 3 weeks, and it was because his school and his parents forced him into it. Sort of not forced, but was like, hey, you, and don't get me wrong, it was a right move, but his attitude wasn't there, right? I think he was too concerned about what others would think of him. So
gotcha.
He was different, right? So it was a bit of a little bit of a battle there. I felt, I didn't, and again, I don't want to be, I put myself in that kid's shoes. Like, I don't want to be the guy to be like, keep going on, and him ending up like not opening up and not adding any benefit when he's not ready or when he doesn't want to do this program. Right. So, I mean, that was early on. So it hasn't happened in the last, I would say, 12 years at least. Right?
Yeah.
So,
and was that, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh,
now it's a little bit more accepted. So.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna ask, like, because I'm not sure how old that kid was. Do you find it easier to interact with like younger kids or like the older kids? because I feel like there's kind of pros and cons with both. I feel like maybe younger kids they just talk more, maybe, or maybe they're more shy when you first meet them versus the older kids, which maybe, I don't know, it could be they're the ones that give the one word answers or something, that it's harder to open them up. I'm not sure. What do you think?
It's, it all depends on the kid. So I've had, individuals where they were young, and most guys actually start off the same. They're all one worded answer. They're very short, right? And I mean, I can relate to that because as as guys, we're pretty closed off because this is how we are. We want to talk about feelings. We want to talk about all the stuff. So and we don't know who you are. So it really depends on the person. I mean, I've had individuals where in high school, they love to talk. And another high school kid that didn't like to talk at all, right?
Right,
so
right.
It really, and it's because the kids come from different dynamics from their home, right? A lot of them are single parents, or they don't have siblings, or they don't get along with their siblings, or trauma in their home, right? So it really depends on that individual and what they're coming from.
I was gonna ask, like, obviously, so if you're a male, you'll be paired with a male, and throughout your 16 years of volunteering, what is, obviously, I think, you said as young as 6 all the way to 18, 19, for as long as they want to be in the program. What is the average age that you that you've had to deal with?
Have to deal with.
Well, not have to deal with. Sorry, who are the average age mentees that you get paired up with?
Ladies
Maybe
and
I should say
gentlemen,
that.
he's a dad.
That you have to deal. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Is
I'm
the
just kidding.
mentee?
I know what
you know what I mean, right? What average age
Totally, okay.
mentee do you are you paired with typically?
I would say the average would be between 9 to 12, I would say, is kind of the bulk of it that I see based on my experience. So, I don't know if that's changed, right? But I would say 9 to 12 would be kind of
Okay.
more.
So 9 to
age group.
12 you would say, and we we didn't get into the breakdown of what you do when you're paired with them, right? Like you got to talk about board games and whatnot, but what else in this hour are you doing? I guess in terms of in school program, what do you do within that hour? And then outside of that of the in school program, what do you do during that hour?
Okay. So some of the things would be board games, card games. We go, depending on the weather, we could go outside, play soccer, basketball, throw the ball around, walk around the school. In the hallway, what we've done is we played hockey, we played soccer. So the teachers are very flexible with that. In the gym, if there's not a class in there, we would go in there as well, right? So we can pretty much we've cooked before. So we've used the home ec room, made some
Nice.
cookies, some muffins and stuff like that. So it's really what we want to do at that time, right? And whatever facilities they have open. So in school, it's whatever capacity that school has. Everyone's really supportive in some principles, like, hey, do you have everything that you need? Should we get something over here? Like, so it's been a really good experience in terms of that part. Outside of it, sorry, and then in between, Big Brother Big Sister does also have corporate sponsors which will donate tickets, hockey tickets, baseball tickets, Telespark. So a lot of the events, and they'll send an email, movie nights, they'll send it to an email for us to see, hey, can you guys attend these things, right? So of course they would have to get approval from their parents and permission slips in order to do that. And you do have to, I believe, be matched at least 1 year, right? From what I remember, in order to participate in those programs, but I could be wrong. So besides that, Big Brother Big Sister has a lot of other stuff that supports you in that. Now, outside of the in-school mentoring, it's pretty much however you want to meet up, right? So it could be at a Tim Hortons, it could be at the mall, it could be at the park, it could be at their home to walk around. It could be, I've taken my mentee to run errands, right, with me. And we would just talk in the car.
Whoa. Hold on. So you take your mentee to run errands. So you getting him to do your dry cleaning and stuff too, or is that how it goes?
Well, yeah, he's driving, obviously, without a license.
Without a
While I'm in the
license,
back,
okay.
yeah. While I'm in the back doing
I
some
was
work.
just gonna
supposedly
Yeah.
say,
doing-
folks, if you haven't, you've
Yeah.
heard it here first. If you're gonna pick a mentor, you might want to think about this one. I'm
So
kidding.
since
I'm
you're
kidding.
calling me out there, so yeah, so not the whole time it would be errands. It would be just, hey, I need to stop off somewhere to pick something up. Is that going to be okay, right? And then we would just go off and have lunch or do whatever activities that we had planned that day, right? So
Right.
I feel like, a lot of people are like, it's so structured, and no, I mean, once you get to the point, it's organic. It's whatever comfort you guys are at, right? With the parents, with the program coordinator, with the child. So it's really, yeah, it's become a lifestyle. So for me, it's just normal.
So I have a question. So I guess if you do this in-school program, I mean, is it just you, or is there like several kind of volunteers in there in the school at the same time? Like, have you run into other volunteers within the program at the same time in the school?
I have not very often, right? So it just depends on also how active the school is with their students in Big Brother Big Sister. So I've actually had a lot of kids come up and say, "Oh, I mean, you come every day," and I usually bring lunch, right? Because what I find is a lot of kids actually don't have lunch,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy. So I'll bring lunch, and kids do see that, and they're like, "Oh my God, like pizza or like Subway or whatever it is," and they're just like, "I want to be part of this," right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a cool thing where when kids actually see what's going on, they do want to be part of it.
Yeah. So I mean, is there some like do's and don'ts? Like, is there like things that you just should not do as part of the, like, obviously there's the obvious stuff, but is there other stuff that maybe not as obvious to people that you should not be doing when you're doing these kind of like in this volunteer
Volunteering.
role? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, don't do it. Don't do it just because you're adding it to your resume, because you're affecting an individual's life, right? So, as deep as that sounds, it really is not a complicated thing to do, right? So, if you're going to volunteer, and most people when they volunteer, it's out of the goodness of their heart, right? So, and I would just say, if you're going to volunteer, put yourself in the child's shoes, right? How would you want that person to show up for you? Would you like for somebody to show up just, every month? How'd you like it if, you met for 2 months and then all of a sudden you said, "Oh yeah, I can't do it." Like, how would you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when you're going in volunteering, do it with intent. So don't do it just because you want to add it to your resume, right? So because it does affect that individual's life, but also I believe it affects your life, right?
Yeah.
So be committed for sure, right? Because you will make a difference, not only the kid's life, but it's really self-fulfilling, right? It's very humbling, because some of the problems that you think you have bad, to hear some of the stuff from their side and what they've experienced, sometimes it's like, holy gee, right? So it's like, wow, like, just makes me want to kind of, puts things into perspective for me, for sure. And don't push things. So another thing would be, don't push the conversations. Sometimes it takes a little bit for that individual to warm up to you, right? So if it's one word and answers, great. Use different techniques, right? You don't have to keep using the same thing, but just be fluid, because they're just as scared as you are, right? They're just as new to this program, so they're also trying to figure things out. So, so it's, you gotta be comfortable with them, right?
Yeah. I like that fact that you can do activities with them, because that can help really open
Oh,
them
that's a
up.
huge icebreaker. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure,
like
Eric.
just board games or stuff like that, get them to, like, start playing and stuff. I do have a question regarding that, though, because like it seems like, especially for the in-school ones, it is happening like during the school day. So just as during, and if you're working, like, did you do this, like, say during your lunch hour to go in there? Like, how do you balance that?
So for me, I tried to keep it pretty consistent, just because with the schools, each day is a bit different. So even though it's the same day that we meet up, it's a
Mhm.
different if it's a different class that they attend, right? So
Right.
for me to try and keep that consistent, it's easier for them to remember as well,
Yeah.
right? To be like, okay, every day I'm going to come at this time, right? So I
Mhm.
would make that part of my, my regimen. So I
Mm.
would schedule that in. There are times where, yeah, I couldn't make it, so I'd call the school, let them know, right, and then reschedule for the next day. So it really, so that's what worked for me, right? Now, if somebody comes in and they've got a very fluid or dynamic schedule and they don't know, then that's something that you can work out with with your kid as well, right?
Mhm.
So the program, although you do get to meet an hour a week for the full school year, you guys can figure out when that's going to be, whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whether it's in the morning, closer to after school, at lunch.
Mhm.
It's really up to you guys.
Yeah. As long as you make that time, because they're expecting you, right? And if you don't
Right.
show up, then that's just another disappointment in their life, which is going to affect
Exactly.
them. And then
Right.
I mean, if you, I mean, I would feel guilty as well if I like for that week, because you're like, they're expecting me, I can't make it. I just feel bad. Maybe you can do like 2 hours another week. I don't
Mhm.
even know if that's possible, but
Well, so what you can is, I mean, there are weeks. There's one week where I've missed it, and as long as you let them know,
Mhm.
they understand,
Yeah,
right? As long as you communicate to them. I mean, it's not every other week you're missing it. Then it becomes a pattern. Then it's not just like, hey, this is a one off. This
yeah,
is something that, okay, in my opinion, the kids now like, okay, now this is what I'm familiar with, right?
yeah,
Somebody
yeah.
who says they're going to be there and they're not going to be there, right? So the one offs, you're fine as long as you explain it, but it's a showing up. And it comes back to also, how would you feel if
Yeah.
you went to the school and then the kid was like, oh, you know what? Sorry, not this week. I'm busy. How about next week? Because, you're taking your time out to go meet with the individual, and the kid's doing the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, they have to, in some cases, prepare themselves for that 1 hour.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that, like, obviously there's, a lot of people that work 9 to 5. So, I mean, in instances like that, is there other routes? Like, what is the suggestion if they wanted to volunteer, but they work a 9 to 5 job, they can't get out of the office, during the school hours? Is there other opportunities there?
There are. So you could become part of I believe it's called the community program with Big Brother, Big Sister.
Okay.
So you would mentor outside of school, right? So whether it's, after school, after you're done work, on the weekends, right?
Right.
So that would be something that you can also participate
Mhm.
in and help out.
I I'd like to roll it back to, so you said that basically before you kind of meet the kid, you talk with the teachers and the parents, right? To kind
Mhm.
of, I'm
All
actually
together.
all together.
All
Okay,
together. Yeah.
all together.
Mhm.
I'm interested in what the parents tell you, because the parents, like, they're talking to you because they think that I guess they need someone in their kid's life.
Mhm.
And I'm curious as to what they tell. Do they actually tell you, like, listen, I work a lot, I'm not around my kid, I can see that there's some issues with him that they don't want to talk to me about. So,
Mhm.
like, do they actually open up to you on this?
Um, some parents do, some don't.
Mhm.
Some will get there once we finish I guess, the meet and greet.
Mhm.
The kid will go back to class, and then we'll just sit there and then we'll just chat, right?
Mhm.
So I don't think I've come across a parent that's been that upfront with
Okay.
things, right?
Right.
What the most common discussions we would have would be, I want you to be aware of my son and what he needs, and this is how he is, and this is how this is how he's been. If he does this or if he's short, this is what it means, right? So it's a
Mm,
lot of kind of like, hey, this is what you need to be aware of, as opposed to, you know, this is, I'm not there for my kid, right?
right.
So,
Right.
but I and I respect that, and that's up to that individual to figure out. But as you go along, because the parents, I get involved with the parents quite a bit, right? So I do
Okay.
text them back and forth. We do talk just to see what's going on, not in terms. And I set the expectation right away, saying, hey, what we talk about is between me and your son.
Right. Right.
If
Right.
he's in harm's way or if he's in danger, yes, there's an avenue that we will go to let you know, right?
Mhm.
But just to let you know, I'm not here for you. I'm here for your kid,
Mhm.
right?
Mm.
So if your kid wants to talk to you about it, and that's perfectly fine. It comes from him, right? But I don't want you calling me. I don't want you emailing me say, okay, what did you find out? Can you ask him this question?
Mm.
That's not what I'm here for. I'm not here for you. I'm here for my mentee, right? So, but as we go along, families do open up a little bit more, right? Because sometimes I do have some questions, and I'm like, okay, so just want to know, like, when I talk about this, or when he talks about this a subject in school, or when he talks about his friend, like, it's not too positive. Like, what's your feeling on that, right?
Mhm.
And then they would,
Mm.
let me know kind of sometimes the backstory and what's going on.
And do you get do you talk with the teachers as well? If do you feel like something's happening at the school, you have a conversation with teachers or the principal at the school?
The first point of contact would be the program coordinator, right? So I rarely talk to the teachers in school,
Okay.
um, except for like, hey, how are you doing? And in the beginning, but rarely outside of that, right? So it's usually the program coordinators that you talk to that give you the support that you can talk to, and then they have different channels and avenues that they would go down. Now I've gotten to a point where I could talk to the parents directly, right? Just because you know established this part of the family now, right? So,
Yeah.
so that channel is really, but they're always there. The program coordinators from Big Brother Big Sister is always there to be like, hey, you know, and they do quarterly checks as well, and to be how things are going, anything we should be aware of, anything that we should let uh, his mom know,
Mhm.
or the situation here, right? So there's constantly tabs that are kept on what's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the reason why I ask that is just, sometimes, if we feel like there's something, happening within the school, maybe there's a change that can happen within the system itself, to make kids either feel safer or whatnot. And I know that, having big brothers and big sisters there as another avenue for kids to rely on and have an outlet. But, I wonder if um, some of that information is being passed on to the schools, so maybe they can look at other things that they can do to maybe change the system within.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I have no doubt that it does happen. So things that they do find out, or things that they want to implement, or things that they know what's going on, they do get conveyed back to the school, try and improve it, right? So
Mhm.
I have no qualms about that happening, right? So
Right on.
and that's another great thing about the Big Brother Big Sister program with the other schools is they collaborate with each other.
Yeah.
So they bring awareness, and they do keep each other updated on kind of what's going on as well.
Well,
And
I think that's great. Eric, did you have something to say?
oh, no, I was just gonna. I just keep thinking like you've been with your kid. Well, he's
My
basically
match.
a teenager now. Yeah,
He is, yeah.
for like 8 years. So you're
Hmm.
basically a part of the family now.
Hmm.
You must get invited to the picnics, the barbecues.
Yeah. So it's awesome because we've done a lot of, and the one thing that I love about this program as well is a lot of kids don't experience some of the things that we take for granted, right?
Mhm.
So, went to Banff. Like, how many times have you been to Banff, right?
Mhm.
And with my match, never been to Banff before. He thought Banff was like a ranch.
Hmm.
Went there and he was like, "Oh my god, like there's buildings, like it looks like a city, right?"
Mhm.
And it's just like some of the things where you're just like, oh, we've been here a million times, but like that individual to not experience it, right? He hasn't barbecued before, so first time barbecue was last year, right?
Oh.
So it was, yeah. So a lot of kind of no, not last year, the other year before. Um, so that's a one thing that I really love to do with my matches is in the beginning of the year, the school year, whatever it is, hey, write down some of the things that you would love to do that you haven't experienced before,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And I'm
Mhm.
not saying that we're going to do it all, but hey, if there's some things that we can cross off, let's cross that off. And I'll do the same thing, right? Like
Mhm.
for conversations or experiences or whatever it's going to be, like, hey, like it's because what I want to show them is, hey, not only am I here for you, but it's a two-way street, right? You're also contributing to my life. You're helping me,
Mhm.
Mhm.
So
right? So
I guess like, say, for myself, I'm wanting to volunteer with Big Brother and Big Sister. Are there certain requirements that I have to meet before I can be a volunteer there?
I'm pretty sure there are. I don't want to speak to that just because I'm not too familiar with it, right? But the volunteer process is very simple. It's very easy. It's not, cumbersome. It's not time consuming. So I would, contact the organization just to find out more details on
Mhm.
that. But it's a very straightforward process, right? So as long as you're not a criminal,
Yeah.
then
Yeah. Yeah.
you'll
Looks like Lance is out of
Well,
right.
well, I'm just saying, right?
One of the
I
big
mean,
reasons why he's not a volunteer.
Yeah.
So it's a very easy process to go through.
yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I think that's great. I think if you're like if you had a word right now or a couple of minutes right now and you want to say something to people that are thinking but are kind of on the fence whether or not, what would you say to them about volunteering?
I would say, stop thinking and just do it. Right. Since that time, since the video came out, I had people message me and say, you know what, like that's great. I've been meaning but to do this. Like when was that? Like 10 years ago?
Hmm.
Like what's stopping you? It's like I never have the time. No one ever has the time, right?
Mhm.
No one ever has the time to do anything because life just gets more busy. You got to schedule it in, right?
Yeah.
Volunteer is is in my blood. I give back,
Yeah.
right? And that's
Mhm.
something where everyone should do in any capacity.
Yeah.
So for me, I have a big soft spot for kids, right? I want the best for them. I want them to excel. I want them to be the best that they can be. I want them to know that, in the world that they're dealing with, it is temporary and you have choices to make it better, right? Although at this moment you feel like, oh my God, nothing's going right, my world's going to end. No, it's temporary. It's a hurdle, you know. They just need some guidance. So, and for the for people out there to volunteer, I mean, if you could have one person that could make a difference, why wouldn't you? Why would you want to take that opportunity to do that,
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right?
for sure.
So
And
it's it's rewarding in a lot of ways.
yeah. And speaking of that video, because for our listeners out there who don't know, can you give a little backstory on that? Because that's how I learned about you from what was it, CTV News or or the Global or something like that.
Global, yeah, global Calgary. So,
Yeah.
um, Big Brother, Big Sister, they had a wait list of 300 kids, right?
Mhm.
So they've always had a big wait list, and the bigger demand is for male mentors for sure, right? So they had they reached out to certain matches, so they wanted to do a current match a match that was in the program that transformed into a friendship, a longer term friendship, and then they had somebody who was on the wait list to have a mentor, right? So it was a 3-part thing. So they wanted to really show why an individual needs a mentor, and they're waiting in the program, and the need for more male mentors. And then the match that are currently in the program to showcase, hey, this is what the match looks like. This is what this is what they're doing, and then afterward, right? So, and not a lot of people realize, and sorry, a lot of people just think it's volunteering and that's it, but it goes beyond that, right? It, like, for me in my matches with my individual, I still talk to 4 of my matches still, right?
Oh, wow.
Almost 3 of them are young adults, right?
Yeah.
And one of them just coming out of his teenage years. So it's not just, for me anyways, it's not just a match. It's not just not volunteering, but you gain a lifelong friend, right? So it's much more than volunteering.
So I guess I had another question. So maybe like, you know, you want to volunteer. Are there other types of roles that are with Big Brother Big Sisters that are not what you're talking about? If you're sitting with the mentee, is there other types of volunteer roles within the organization?
Ooh, can't answer that. I'm not sure. I feel like there probably is. I mean, with any nonprofit organization, the biggest resource for the organization is the people, right? So because they're not a corporation and they're not for profit, I mean, any time they can get some resources for volunteers, that would be certainly very helpful.
Right on. So, you know, I have one last question for you, and that's just like for yourself, what's the biggest fulfillment for you for volunteering? What has been your biggest fulfillment?
My biggest fulfillment would be, I guess, to still continue to be part of that individual's life, right? And not just a person who's another person that's in and out of their life, right? I'm not a teacher. I'm not like, a friend who they don't associate themselves with, but it's really now become, just part of the family. So for me, it's that relationship. It's that, that that carry forward still. So for me, that means a whole lot.
All right, man. So I guess for those the organization is global, right? Is international. Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Yeah.
So how are some of the ways that if someone was interested, how can they look into this program? Just by Google, or what are some ways that they can look into that?
Yeah, so they can certainly go to the Big Brother Big Sister website, so bbbscalgary.ca. There's a wealth of information on there. They can follow them on Twitter. They can follow them on Instagram as well. But they can email, they can call, but it's very simple. So just go to the website. There's a button to volunteer, and it'll tell you all the details.
Awesome. So again, I just want to thank you for your time and thank you for sharing your story with us. Hopefully we can get some volunteers that are interested. And if you are interested in volunteering, check out Big Brothers Big Sisters. Can you give me that website once again?
Yeah, the website is www.bbbscalgary.ca.
All right, and that's the Calgary division for Big Brothers Big Sisters. So thank you again, and until next time, or anyways, if anybody else has a comment, or any of our listeners have or want to get in touch with us, talk a little bit more about volunteering, or even get a little bit more information from us about maybe Big Brothers Big Sisters, let us know. We're on Instagram, Off the Walk Podcast.
Off the Walk Path. Yeah, Off the Walk Podcast.
Okay. And email offthewalk.info@gmail.com. So yeah, get in touch with us, and yeah, if you have your own story that you want to share with us, get in touch with us, and we'd love to hear your story. So until next
That's
time.
right. Yeah, and before we end, Lance, I just want to also say, so Henry, if people also want to donate to Big Brothers Big Sister, it's all available on the website too, I guess, right?
Yes, that's huge, Eric. Yeah. So because they're a nonprofit organization, if you cannot, I don't know why you wouldn't donate your time, but if you are busy individual, you can help out in other ways. So you can donate resources, you can donate money to help the program run, and that's all on the website as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, for our listeners out there who they have extremely busy lives and can't donate time, there are other ways to do it. Same with us at Off the Walk too. If you'd also, like to put in a couple bucks here or there for our show so that we can continue interviewing great guests just like Henry, and to keep you up to date, to bring you that knowledge in case you didn't know about some of these organizations that did exist, please donate also to Off the Walk. So until next time, come walk with us again.